The Chiefs host the Raiders on Black Friday on Amazon Prime. We're going to break it all down for you right here on Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Raiders.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Raiders. This is your crossover episode. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I am Chris Clark. This is Mr. Q from Locked On Raiders. Welcome back for another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Raiders your first listen of the day. Don't forget, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. Q, how's it going over there?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. It's, Thanksgiving football is always fun football. Black Friday. I still think that, Black Friday would make sense to be played in the black stadium, but that's just me. So, those are just semantics, I guess. So, no, it's all good, man. I'm excited about this one. Should be fun. Raiders, Chiefs. Hasn't been much of a rivalry, but still it's the Chiefs and Raiders. It's fun to get together. So, yeah, man, looking forward to this game on Friday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We don't get to see Kansas City on Amazon Prime very much. Getting to see the extra analytics that comes with the broadcast. Looking forward to that. But let's just dive right into this game. It sounds like you guys are going to get Aiden O'Connell back, and it sounds like from what I heard he's going to start. But what is the story going into this week for you for the Raiders?
Yeah, that's it, man. That's the biggest storyline right there. It's been confirmed from Antonio Pierce, the head coach, that Aiden O'Connell will get the start on Friday. And look, he's coming back off of IR, right? He's been out for 5 weeks. He's missed 4 games. He had a broken thumb. So here you go, right? Hey, no problem, kid. Just jump in there. It's a short week. It's cold in Arrowhead. It's a division rival. They've got a really good defense that can get to the quarterback led by Chris Jones. The offensive line is still a little suspect for the Raiders. And, you got to go on the road. So, hey, it's not the ideal situation, but Aiden O'Connell is one of those dudes that as long as he's given an opportunity, he's going to take the advantage of it and make the most of it. And that's all you could really ask for a guy. And we know what it is, man. The Raiders season has clearly not been what it's supposed to be and what they thought it was going to be when they were back in Costa Mesa, California for training camp. They're 2-9 right now going into this one. The Chiefs obviously have bigger aspirations. They're trying to get the Lombardi for the 3rd year in a row. So the Raiders are trying to play spoiler, man. It's just that simple. I'm looking forward to seeing what Aiden O'Connell looks like. He has Scott Turner now as his offensive coordinator. And you want to talk about adversity. Aiden O'Connell now has had 4 offensive coordinators since he's been in the league. He got drafted in 2023. In the 4th round. He's had 4 different offensive coordinators. So Scott Turner gets his shot with them this Friday. Scott Turner's offense has looked better for the Raiders the last 2 weeks, but they still resulted in losses. So, take that for what it's worth. But I'm excited to see what it looks like. Apparently, Scott Turner's offense is more designed for a guy like Aiden O'Connell. So maybe it's going to look a lot better. We don't know until we see it. And as you recall, last time that the Raiders were in Arrowhead on Christmas, Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. The Raiders found a way to win it basically because of defensive touchdowns, but that's not going to cut it this time around. If you think it is, you're crazy. So I want to see what it looks like with Scott Turner and Aiden O'Connell and see if it looks any different or even look any better for the Raiders in their offense.
I just have to say I hope that that's not what's going to cut it in this game because Kansas City cannot have another game like that. One was enough for me to deal with in that scenario. But you talk about Aiden O'Connell. It's really interesting because quite literally, Gardner Minshew came back and started once O'Connell went down. And Now you have a situation where Minshew gets hurt, and the exact next week, you got Aiden O'Connell coming back from injury. He's going to get the start. But it sounds like the Raiders are also going to be down 2 corners, if I saw the injury report correct.
Yeah, you did. Found out on Wednesday as well. Nate Hobbs and Ja'Cory Bennett, 2 out of the 3 starting cornerbacks, are going to be out. Nate's always the guy manning the slot. Ja'Cory Bennett's always manning one side across from Jack Jones. And Ja'Cory Bennett's been fantastic all year. He's been their best corner, and unfortunately, they won't have him on Sunday or on Friday, I should say. He did a really good job against Jamar Chase when the Bengals played him. He did a pretty good job with DeAndre Hopkins when the Raiders played the Chiefs earlier. He's just been their best corner. So it's unfortunate that the Raiders aren't going to have him or Nate. Nate's a sure tackler, a real physical dude in the slot, and they're just not going to have those two dudes. So DeCamerion Richardson, the 4th round pick out of Mississippi State, He was kind of baptized, thrown into the fire last week against the Broncos and Cortland Sutton, and Sutton had his way with them, right? I mean, he really had a big day against DCAM, but he never put his head down. He never quit. He actually had a really good pass breakup late in the game that gave the Raiders the opportunity with the ball late to come back and tie the game. They didn't. That's actually the play. The next play is when Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone, and that's why he's out for the season. But he looked like he, didn't flinch after struggling early in the game and came back and made a big play. So we'll see. It's just more reps for DCAM and the rest of the young guys that are in the Raiders secondary and Raiders team in general. I mean, they got so many guys that are injured. So it's not ideal. It's not what Antonio Pierce or anyone else wants, but it's what they're dealt. And nobody feels bad for you because you're dealing with injuries. You just got to go out there and play with who you have. So that's what they'll attempt to do on Black Friday there in Arrowhead.
Yeah, Chiefs really can feel that this year when you talk about not feeling bad for you when you are dealing with injuries. Kansas City's had their fair share of injuries. They'll get a couple back, and we'll talk about that here in the next segment. But it's interesting because you talk about DCAM coming in, and yeah, you're right. Generally speaking, you don't want to be facing off against one of the best QBs in the NFL the first week you get a start and be that guy that he's going to be looking for, because I guarantee you Mahomes is going to know where he's out on the field.
Oh, yeah.
Probably on a regular basis every single time. But when you look at this game and you look at what it means for the Raiders, obviously they're 2-9. They're not making the playoffs. We know that. But they do have the ability and they have the desire, because the Raiders hate the Chiefs just about as much as the Chiefs hate the Raiders. They have the desire, they have the want to ruin the Chiefs' season. I think that's one of the bigger things I'm going to be watching for in this game is how are they going to attack Kansas City trying to make that happen.
Absolutely. Antonio Pierce told us, he said, hey, man, let's make it a Black Friday. He knows what it is, call a spade a spade. He said that, they're the best team in the league and we're the worst team in the league. He said, I know what the narrative is. I get it. But let's get back to playing Raider football. Let's get physical. Let's get dirty. Let's get nasty out there. Obviously, legally, not trying to, do anything to hurt anybody, but malicious. But, yeah, I mean, he just wants to get back to the old rivalry that was the Chiefs and Raiders when it was a great rivalry and, get back to Raider football and try to ruin Thanksgiving, just like Christmas was ruined for the Chiefs when they didn't get the number 1 seed. Now they turned that into the Lombardi, so that's fine. I mean, that's I guess a consolation prize. But I mean, that the Raiders, for their efforts, that's what they want to do. They want to go into Arrowhead on Friday, get the W. And he said, turn Black Friday into a real true Black Friday at Allegiant Stadium, right? Turn that red stadium into a black stadium and, feel good about themselves. And look, when you're 2-9, you have to get the victories when you can. They had a big win early in the season against Baltimore. That was something that was pretty good for them. But they haven't had much success since. They only had 1 win against the Browns and everything else has been a loss. So they'd love to get back to winning ways. And if they could do it on Friday against Kansas City, a hated rival, then they definitely want to do that.
Yeah, and one of the things I've always loved about this rivalry in the past couple of years is Max Crosby versus Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it on Netflix, you need to go watch Quarterback. You need to go watch Max Crosby and Mahomes go at each other. And don't get me wrong, like they act like they hate each other on the field, but you can tell there's mutual respect. They both they get after it on the field, but they respect each other. But it's always great to see them going after it. And Max Crosby doesn't want to give Mahomes any chances, and Mahomes isn't going to give Crosby a chance either. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this matchup. When we get back, we're going to talk.
I'll tell you what, real quick about Max Crosby. He hasn't had a sack in 4 games. So if you want to talk about a dude,
why you got to say it?
I just want to throw that out there real quick.
Why you got to say that?
If you want to talk about a dude who's itching to get back into the sack column, it's that dude, Max Crosby. He's going to be extra motivated to get after Mahomes, who, you're right, They have so much respect for each other.
You talk about that, and you say Max doesn't have a sack in 4 games. Chris Jones doesn't have a sack in 7.
Ooh, geez. Well, there you go. Who's going to break their streak first, right? Potentially both of them break their streak on Friday.
Yeah, potentially. I'm hoping that Chris Jones finds a way to get it done. I'm not hoping Max Crosby does, because generally speaking, when he gets Mahomes, it's a pretty good hit. So, but when we get back, we're going to talk about the Chiefs' story of this week and what we're going to look for in this game.
We'll do that after I tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and that is our great friends at FanDuel. And it doesn't matter if it's week 13. It's never, and I mean never, too late to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. It's that simple. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And if you're looking at it right now and you're looking at this game, Chiefs and Raiders, you're like, whoa, That's a big spread. Chiefs are favored by 12.5 points. Now I'll say this. Chiefs don't really cover the spread all that often, you can look at the game against Carolina last week, but they win. That's all that matters is they win. So something to think about, food for thought. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Go to FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 at bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
When we look at this game from the Chiefs' perspective, you can't overlook the Raiders. Obviously, I think Kansas City somewhat overlooked the Panthers this past week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you can't do that. The Chiefs have lost to the Raiders in bad fashion in the past couple of games that they played them. Obviously, the Christmas game that you talked about. And I guess, I will say this. If this leads to Kansas City winning the third Lombardi and they lose this game, I guess I'm okay with the loss.
I'm sure.
I'm not going to feel great about it.
Right.
But, if that's what it leads to, I guess, okay, you'll take it, because that would mean, if they do what they did last season, they don't lose again, this year, and I'd be okay with that. I think most people would. So I think most Chiefs fans would. So, but when you look at this game, it's you're starting to look at playoff implications at this point. Yeah. Kansas City is in the ready to get the 1 seed. They have Buffalo that they got to stay ahead of, so they can't afford to really lose games, especially the rest of the season. I think Buffalo's probably going to drop 1 or 2 more throughout the rest of the season, would be my guess, but you don't want to risk that. And Kansas City is in a situation where they absolutely need to buy. They had an early buy, I think it was week 6, and to have a buy that early and then to play as many games as Kansas City has played for the past couple of seasons, and to expect that they're going to try to play another 20 games, this year between the regular season and playoffs, you're going to want to buy in the first week. So I think that's one of the big things is they have to stay focused. They have to win every single game that they have left on their schedule. They have to be playing like they're trying to win every single game that they have on their schedule. And I don't know that they've really played that way, especially against the Panthers. You go back and watch some of that game, it just looked like they got lackluster in the second half. You can't afford to do that against teams that are going to come out and give you their best every single week. And I guarantee you the Raiders are going to come out and give them their best this week. And the Chargers are next. So it's not like it's going to get any easier. You're going up against 2 division rivals in 2 weeks. It's going to be rough for the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, it will. And that's exactly where I wanted to go, because, this is one of those, you look at the record and you're like, all right, well, the Chiefs are fantastic, right? They've only lost 1 game, but it's the style that they've been winning these games. And, of course, the playoffs and a deep run and potentially hoisting a Lombardi is all that matters to the Chiefs and Chiefs Kingdom. So is their style that they're playing, is the way that they're winning, is that sustainable? Or do you, Chris, need to see an uptick from this team to say, okay, they're playoff ready now, they're ready to go and potentially make that run at the Super Bowl?
So I have a couple of different thoughts on this. First, I would love to see an uptick. I wanted to see an uptick against Carolina Panthers. I didn't see it. I saw it maybe in the first half, and then there was a letdown in the second half. But there's a couple of realities here that are also playing into this. We talked about injuries just a little bit earlier. The Raiders are dealing with some injuries. The Chiefs have been decimated with injuries at different positions. They're now down to their 5th tight end. Obviously, they still have their top 2, but they've lost 3 tight ends now to IR, and guys that were contributing in some way, shape, or form on the roster. They lost Isaiah Pacheco week 2. They should get him back this week, which I think is going to be a huge addition. I don't know that's going to be a huge addition this week, but it will be a huge addition going through, December and January. They're going to get Charles Omenihu back. I think he also plays this week. Again, I'm not going to think it's going to be a huge amount this week, but I do think that he will be playing this week and helping them. And then you talk about, the injuries that happened early in the season. They lost Rashee Rice week 4. They lost Hollywood Brown before he even took a regular season snap for him. The first snap of the preseason, they lost Hollywood Brown.
Yeah,
he could be back in late December. So when you start talking about clicking, you start looking at, okay, they're going to get Pacheco back. That gives you another option in the running game, which has already been good. And now you have a chance to actually, keep Kareem Hunt a little bit fresher going into the playoffs, which I think is going to help and give you a 2-headed monster in the running situation. And you have a chance to get, a guy in Hollywood Brown who I really think, based on what I saw in training camp and based on all the different things that I read with practice reports and being at training camp when I was there, and then the other training camp times I wasn't. They had a specific plan for Hollywood. He was going to be a big part of their offense, and then to not have him at all, I think took a huge chunk of their playbook out. To bring him back in December, to get him up and going with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and then you bring back a guy in Xavier Worthy who doesn't have to be that top speed threat anymore because he can take a backseat to Hollywood Brown a little bit. I think that's going to help them, and I do think that that's kind of what gets them to the next level. The other side of it for me, though, is all these close games make you realize that when things come down to it and everything is on the line, generally speaking, this team knows how to get it done, and they've been tried and tested on a regular basis, and they show that they can get it done just about every single time. So that has to make you feel good when you get towards the playoffs because you know those games are going to be close.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Again, I mean, you got to tip the cap to a team that just finds ways to win games. Like I never get upset about a team that wins, even if their games aren't looking like what we're used to seeing. Defensively, you mentioned, as I was talking about, Max Crosby not getting to the quarterback and hasn't been able to get a sack in the last 4 games. You mentioned Chris Jones in the last 7 games. He hasn't had a sack. So tell us about Chris Jones and tell us about the state of the defense right now, where they are going into Friday's game.
Defense has taken a step back, and I think that there's a couple of different things that are playing into it. They're not getting the pressure on the quarterback that they were last year. I think they had close to, I believe, somewhere between 55 and 60 sacks last year in total. Right now, I think they have about 22. So wow. They're not on pace for where they were last year. They're behind. They are getting pressure, and Chris Jones is, I think, 3rd in the NFL when it comes to quickest to getting pressure on the QB. Behind 2 guys in Pittsburgh, which doesn't make me feel good about that matchup later on this in a couple of weeks. But so he's getting pressure. He's creating pressure up the interior, but he's not getting home. And the problem is he gets the pressure, but nobody else is finishing it off either. Right. Because when you're only getting 22 sacks, yeah, you might get pressure. Yeah, you might get hits to some extent. It's not the same as taking the guy to the ground or, hitting him on a regular basis. But the other problem, and if you go back and watch specifically the Carolina game, because I went back and I watched some of Bryce Young's throws, he hasn't made plays like that in the NFL. There's some throws that he made in that game I haven't seen him even try to attempt in the NFL. And he made them against the Chiefs, and he made multiple of them against the Chiefs. I'm not going to say that that's going to happen every single game, but Kansas City consistently seems to have guys that are coming in and playing above what they're used to, and playing all out, trying to go for things and taking chances that normally they probably wouldn't try.
What about the kicking game? I know that hasn't been exactly what Kansas City's been looking at. Harrison Butker on IR, so that's obviously something that's a big deal. What does it look like, kicking-wise right now for the Chiefs?
Funny you mentioned that because Kansas City also lost Matt Schrader this week. So the guy that's backing up Butker and came in and is took over the kicking duties for 2 weeks is out this week. He has a hamstring injury. He hasn't practiced. They signed Matt Wright to the practice squad. It sounds like they're expecting that he's going to be activated for the game. And that's probably going to be their plan, is they're going to activate him this week. I don't know whether or not he'll end up kicking next week. That's a ways down the ways. But Matt Wright might sound familiar to some people because he was the Chiefs kicker when Harrison Butker got injured a couple of years ago. He came in and kicked a 60-some yard field goal. It was the longest field goal in Chiefs history. And then Butker came back 2 weeks later and took that record back. So Wright has the ability. Their kicking has been strong, and Schrader hasn't missed kicks. So I think you have to feel good right now about where they are there. But again, you're bringing in a guy that hasn't kicked, that was a free agent this week. Yeah. And now he's going to be kicking for you in a game where you shouldn't need it. I mean, this shouldn't be a close game, but the way the Chiefs play, it's likely going to be a one-score game at the end. Yeah, and the Raiders are going to play it tough. I mean, I know they're double-digit underdogs, but they're gonna give everything they got. And you can look at some of the results of their games as of late, and you're like, oh, they got blown out in this one, they got blown out. They really don't kind of get off the rails till late in the game. So I feel like that it's probably going to be a lot closer than the spread says, at 12.5 right now, courtesy of FanDuel. We'll see what it looks like, but I think that's a good storyline. I think all these storylines are really good ones. Paying attention to this game, man. Chiefs, Raiders, doesn't get any better than that. Black Friday action. Can't wait for it. I absolutely can't wait. And when we get back, we're going to talk about a little bit more about matchups and some of the keys to winning the game for both of these teams right after this.
Right after this from Game Time. And Game Time as well is fantastic. If you need a ticket to anything, and I mean anything, matter of fact, if you're looking for last-minute tickets to Chiefs Raiders, you want to get out there Black Friday at Arrowhead, Game Time could help you. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. It filters out all the fluff, all the stuff that you don't care about. Yeah, it just focuses in on what you want. The incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And they've got so many different features. They've got the Game Time Picks. I like that. All-in pricing is great. My favorite, my absolute favorite is the seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So maybe you haven't been to Arrowhead yet. Maybe you haven't enjoyed a game right there in Kansas City, but you want to check it out, but you want to know what your seats look like. That is what I always go to. That is my go-to. It should be called the Q. It is called the seat views. So it lets you know your panoramic view before you buy. They got the lowest price guarantee. They got game time coverage. They got everything that you need. What you need to do to get it? Well, it's easy. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Lots of matchups in this game, lots of different keys. What do you see as the key matchup for you going into this game?
Well, I want to see what this offensive line is going to look like. This is the third week in a row that it's the same iteration of the Raiders offensive line, which you're in week 13. It's first time that they've had, this kind of offensive line continuity in a long time. So that's telling you a lot. So I'm interested to see what, the matchups of the offensive line, especially the interior, looks like against that bloodthirsty pirate that you like to call Chris Jones. I mean, he's fantastic. As you mentioned, hasn't had a sack in 7 games. So I know he's thirsty. I know he's hungry. He's going to want to get to the quarterback. So what does it look like from the interior when it comes to Jordan Meredith, JPJ, the rookie, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and also Dylan Parham? How do they keep that dude off of Aiden O'Connell? He's coming back from a thumb injury. So all those dudes on the defense, especially on the defensive line, are going to do what? They're going to try to hit that ball, hit his hand, see how healthy he really is. I mean, and again, not being dirty, but that's what they're supposed to do. Test that guy, try to hit him, see if they can knock him down and see what it looks like when he gets up. So that interior line is going to be so important for the success of the Raiders, if they are going to have success, to keep the Chiefs defensive line off of Aiden O'Connell. And with that being said, I'm also looking at the run game. The run game is something that has not got going at all for the Raiders this season. It's been bad. They went over 100 yards, I believe, once against the Browns, and that was week 4. They went for 152 yards. They haven't had a performance like that, really. I mean, they've been struggling to run the ball, but they've got this guy, Sincere McCormick, that was a rookie out of UTSA a few years ago, but because of injuries, hasn't really got any burn. He got 5 carries last week against Denver, and they have a really good run defense for 33 yards. But he has that burst. He has that physicality. He has that run behind the pads that Antonio Pierce has been looking for. He told us, because I asked him, he said he's earned more playing time. So he's going to get a heavy dose of the run game. You won't see Zamir White. He'll be out. Alexander Madison is trying to work his way back. We'll see if he gets some burn. You'll probably see Amir Abdullah and Sincere McCormick as the main running backs. Can they generate a running game? They don't want Aiden O'Connell, who's just coming back from IR, to throw the ball 45 times. They've thrown the ball 96 times the last 2 weeks total. Like, that's not what Antonio Pierce wants. They want to have more balance of attack. So they've got to find a way to get that going, whether that's throw the ball to open up the run or the traditional way, run the ball to open up the throw. But they need to be able to get some kind of run game. And Sincere McCormick is going to get some more of the burn. So that is an area that I'm looking forward to. Obviously the offensive line, as I mentioned, and then, also just the playmakers, Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers had 13 catches for 126 yards and a touchdown 2 weeks ago against Miami. And then Denver said, Pat Surtain, go ahead and follow Brock Bowers around. So he only got like 4 or 5 catches against Denver. But Jacoby Myers went off for 10 catches and over 100 yards. So, pick your poison. I want to see how the Chiefs are going to defend those 2 dudes, those 2 main playmakers, and even Big Michael Mayer. Can he get involved? He was out from week 3 to week 11. He was out with personal situations, so he's back now. He's trying to get acclimated to the system. Can he get involved as well? But those 2 main guys, Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, are the 2 big playmakers for the Raiders offense in the passing game. How do they get involved? And if Kansas City decides we're taking Bowers out, how does Scott Turner either scheme him open, or how does he go to other guys and make sure that they're effective in this game? Because, you're going to have to score points against Kansas City to try to win this game. So that's really what I'm looking for from the Raiders offensively. What about you?
I have to say, no offense, but throwing the ball over 95 times with Gardner Minshew in the last 2 weeks is probably not going to be a good way to win a game. It's just going to throw that out there.
No, they haven't won, so there's that.
Yeah.
They've lost 7 in a row, so there you go.
Yeah, it just that's not the way I think you'd want to play football.
No,
You look at this, and when you go back to when the Chiefs played the Raiders the last time, they slowed the run game down, and Kansas City's run defense has been great this season. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher yet, other than Lamar Jackson, and he's a different animal, obviously. You're not going to have that in this game with Aiden O'Connell. So you're looking at a situation where I think Kansas City is going to try to stop the run, and they're going to try to make Aiden O'Connell beat them. The problem Kansas City has is go back and watch their game against the Raiders the last time. Brock Bowers came out and was an animal the first couple of series and got several catches. I think 4 or 5 catches in the first 2 series. And then he disappeared for 2.5 quarters.
Right.
And then in the fourth quarter, came back in and started doing stuff again. So was that Kansas City changing things up to try to adjust something else? Or was it, them going away from Bowers, which I don't understand why you would do that. He's one of the best offensive weapons that they probably have. And quite frankly, he's probably one of the best offensive weapons at the tight end position in the NFL. I would say he's close to getting to top 5 right now at his position. He is a phenomenal player, and it has an extremely bright future. And I hate to see it be in the Raiders, but it is what it is. For me, when I look at this game, I like what you said about Chris Jones and their offensive line. For me, it's a question of, can you stop Max Crosby, and can you impose your will on the Raiders? Because to me, while I agree that it would make more sense to maybe try to attack through the air and use their corners as a weakness, Kansas City's strength has really been running the ball and pounding the rock and keeping ball control offense. And if you can do that, I think that that's the easiest way to win this game. You have a situation where Pacheco's coming back. Maybe you give him 10 touches, 10 carries this game. Kareem Hunt can get 15 carries this game, and then who knows where the rest of the offense comes from. But you can, sprinkle in a couple of throws here and there. But to me, I think that that's really the focus of what they need to do. They need to just come in and they need to control the clock, and they need to just, impose their will on the Raiders and try to, make it to where, the Raiders defense is exhausted by the fourth quarter, and then you can really hand the ball off and try to take over at that point. When you look at the defensive side, it's a question of how do they attack and how do they try to guard Brock Bowers, because I do think that that's going to be a huge key. But then you have Jacoby Myers, who gives you another aspect that you've got to get figured out. Kansas City has not been great at their second corner position and even third corner position at this point. Jalen Watson was playing phenomenal football early in the season. He got injured. He's out for the rest of the season with a fractured ankle. You still have Trent McDuffie, who's playing really well, but when you only have one good corner, it's not enough. And that just as well as I do. You're going to be dealing with basically your fourth and fifth corners as 2 of your starters this week. So that's not where you want to be. Kansas City's in a similar position to an extent, and they got to get that figured out. If they can, slow down Aiden O'Connell through the air, but really stop the running game. If they can stop the Raiders' running game early, I don't think O'Connell's really going to be able to get going, because if they get it to a point where he's got to consistently beat them on third and longs, I don't see that happening on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough. It really will, and that's why Aiden O'Connell's going to want to have the run game help him out and stay ahead of the change, right? Stay on schedule as far as offensively goes. I'll tell you this, though, defensively for the Raiders, Max Crosby's going to have to get busy, right? I mean, again, he's doing really good with TFLs, tackles for loss. He's doing really good in the run game, but he hasn't got home and hasn't got a sack in 4 games. This needs to be his breakout game. And I know he'll be extra ramped up because Patrick Mahomes and him, they go at it, man. They're like the bulls in the ring, right? I mean, they're going at it. They're headbutting each other, and we love it. We love watching it. We love seeing the competition, but Max is feeling good. He had the high ankle sprain, but he told us after the game on Sunday against Denver, I'm feeling the best that I've felt in weeks. So that's a good thing, and we'll see what it looks like. He's got to get home. And honestly, for the Raiders to win this one, it's kind of following the same blueprint that they had a year ago, where they had not necessarily 2 defensive touchdowns, because you can't count on that, but they do need to create a couple turnovers. And I know Patrick Mahomes has turned the ball over this year more times than ever, but they can't rest on, I guarantee he's going to turn the ball over. No, you got to go out there and create one. So I'm looking for the Raiders to, if they, again, want to have a chance in this one, if they want to compete, not only are they going to have to score points, but they're going to have to create a couple turnovers, maybe give the ball to the offense on a short field, maybe create a big play in the special teams, an explosive in the special teams game. Whatever it is, I think the offense is going to need to have a couple short fields to be able to have a chance in this one. It feels like one where the Chiefs really want to probably get back and get some, a little bit of revenge from what happened on Christmas there at Arrowhead, and they're going to be ready for it. I know the fan base is going to be ready for it as well. But you create a couple turnovers defensively, get to the quarterback a little bit, and you give yourself an opportunity to win the game.
And you quiet the crowd. That's the other big thing. And that's really, that also is going to help Aiden O'Connell if they can quiet the crowd and the crowd isn't into it. And he's out there and able to run the offense and not have to worry about the crowd noise. I agree with you. If the Raiders are going to win this game, I do think it has to come via them winning the turnover battle. And it's probably not just by one, it's probably by two at least. But Kansas City has shown that they have turned the ball over a lot this year. Mahomes has thrown, was close to, I don't think he's leading the league anymore, but was close to leading the league in interceptions just a couple of weeks ago. Had 2 more against Buffalo, didn't have any against Carolina. Had been very good until he played against Buffalo. But he has shown that he's going to turn the ball over this year, and they cannot do that. They can't afford to play into a game. And at this point, both you and I have already said it, really kind of play down to the Raiders at this point, because the reality is if you turn the ball over, you get them short fields, you're asking to get beat. And just as well as I do, Raiders want this game. They don't care about their record. They're going to come in there. They're ready to play. They're going to come in there fired up. And Max Crosby is going to be fired up even more than he's been against the Broncos, because you're right. He has tremendous respect for Mahomes, but he wants to attack him and he wants to take him down. And any chance that they get to ruin the Chiefs' season, they're going to try to take.
There's no doubt. I mean, record be damned, draft pick be damned. They want to win this game, right? I mean, just like Antonio Pierce told us on Wednesday, I want to go there and ruin the day. We want to go there and turn it into a true Black Friday, black out that stadium. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see what it looks like. The energy that comes from the players. I'll tell you one thing, being in the locker room like I am all the time, there's no quit in them. They're not thinking about Cancun. They're thinking about the next game. They're out there fighting and clawing and scratching. So Antonio Pierce has not lost the team. I think you can look around the league and look at some teams. You're like, yeah, they're checked out. This team's not checked out. They're going to give you everything they got, and they believe that they can win this game. And that's why they play the games, right? I mean, they just go out there and fight, and that's what I look forward to, is seeing what it looks like. Special day. No other game going on but this one, Chiefs and Raiders, Amazon Prime. I don't think it gets too much better than this, man. I'm pretty fired up and excited about it.
Dude, I'm so ready for this game. It's always fun watching divisional games. It's always fun having the Chiefs play in big, games where everybody's watching them. And I don't like Max Crosby going up against Jawan Taylor in this game. Right. I have so much respect for Max. He is such a great player. His motor is fantastic. He is one of the best defensive ends in the NFL. And you want to have to play those players because it's what gets your team better. But that's not a matchup that I've ever liked. It doesn't matter who your right tackle is. Going up against Max Crosby is not where you want your right tackle to be. But that's going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to go check out Q over at Locked On Raiders. I'm sure he's going to have a game preview up, and it will be ready for Thanksgiving Day. Ryan and I will have you covered as well there. And we will be back live after the game. Thank you all for listening today, and we will talk to you tomorrow.